Tony, Lee Miller used a number of cameras throughout her life, but what was her main camera, her camera of choice?
Lee Miller's camera of preference was the Rolleiflex. When she arrived in Paris in 1929, the Rolleiflex had just been invented, had just been released about the year before. And so here was this new, wonderful, medium format, very portable camera. When we look at them today, they don't look very portable, they look big and clunky, but it was revolutionary in its time because it had the most fabulous quality of lenses. By the time the war came, Lee was still shooting on a Rolleiflex, but it was a different model. She had gone to a later version by that time, and her wartime one has a very special feature. When you look at the front, there's this big knobbly thing, and that is actually the synchronizing switch for the flash gun. There would be a cable that connected the switch to the little ports on the side of the flash gun, and that either had to go on a stand or somebody held it, or maybe she held it at arm's length. And so when she pressed the shutter, there was quite a loud pop from the flash bulb. This is filled with I think it's magnesium ribbon, and it gets very hot. And the bulb is one use only, so once the flash has been made, you have to eject the bulb. And what she developed was a kind of technique where she would offer them to children, because always there'll be hundreds of children scrambling around the place and clamoring and being a blooming nuisance. So she would wait that it was cool enough that the kid could pick it up without serious damage, and he'd go, and then and rush off, you see. So that was a great way of clearing the set. The bulbs were one use only, and so you can see there was a lot of volume that she had to carry around. You can imagine for one sequence, for one shoot, she'd probably get through 25 or 30 shots, and that was a big box of flash bulbs. There's batteries in here that also needed to be replaced quite frequently. So it was clunky, but it worked, and she got fabulous results. There's that wonderful shot of her in Picasso's studio where she's photographing him, and on the edge of the picture you can see a guy holding this flash gun, and his name is Robert Capa, the famous war photographer. So they were all working together, and they all had similar kit, so they knew what they were doing. Well, they didn't all have similar kit because Lee stuck with the Rolleiflex. A lot of other people went to 35mm. If you wanted to choose a camera as a combat camera, you probably wouldn't go for the Rolleiflex because it's big, it only has 12 shots on a roll, and that means that you've got to reload it quite frequently, but it has lenses of a fabulous quality. So that, plus the fact that the negative is like 55mm square, gives you a huge advantage when you go and try and print the negatives, because they come up with fabulous quality. Vogue were very, very keen on high quality images, and Lee was aware of that, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that kept her shooting on the Rolleiflex. She did loot a 35mm Contax, but she didn't use it that much because I think she was just dissatisfied with the quality of the images. Well, this camera, it has two lenses that are the same, and when you're looking through this great big viewfinder here, you have this nice big picture, which is of course reversed left to right, but you're seeing exactly what the film sees because that's behind this lens. And this lens also has the speed and the aperture controls and the shutter. That's the shutter. So one of the key things about this camera is that it's wonderful for portraiture. So if I'm taking your portrait like that, I set everything up, I've got the light meter, I've adjusted the exposure, worked all that out carefully, and we're just chatting away, you see. And you probably didn't hear that. Very soft shutter. And then she would wind on without breaking the conversation. Set the shutter again, and again. Now you see what's happening is that we've got you looking relaxed. You're actually talking to me, and you've forgotten in a way that there's any photography going on. And when you look at Lee's portrait shots, nearly always the subject's eye line is above the camera axis because they're connecting to Lee, not the camera. and that makes them relaxed, and it makes them just feel part of a normal conversation. And you can see why, because if I've got a big camera and I suddenly go like that, it doesn't matter how accustomed to being photographed you are, there comes a freeze over your face, and that's what's absent in these photographs. That's why people look so relaxed and natural.
You mentioned that obviously it's quite a technical piece of kit with that and the flash gun and also the light meter and so forth. How did Lee Miller first learn about the basics of practical photography? What was it from her father Theodore?
Yes, Lee's father Theodore was a very gifted amateur photographer. He came to it because he loved the technology. He was an engineer, and that came easily to him. He had his own darkroom. It was a tiny little darkroom. It was under the stairs. But because he did mostly contact prints, that's printing directly from the negative onto the paper, he didn't need an enlarger, so he didn't need all the extra space and the electricity or whatever it is that would run the enlarger. And that is where Lee learned the basis of photographic chemistry and developing techniques and so on, because he used to develop and print his own images. And he was also very inquisitive. He wanted to find out the latest and the best. So he messed about with a telephoto lens at one point, and that was really something extraordinary. But most of all, he was known for stereoscopic photography, and that's when there are two lenses, it shoots simultaneously two images, and when both of those images are printed and viewed through a special viewer, they do actually look stereoscopic. And so that was his big thing. Mr. Miller has taken stereoscopic pictures. Now, of course, that became quite widely known, and he was quite renowned for it. And it was through that process that Lee got her grounding, her basic understanding of photography, of the chemistry of all the developing and printing that goes on, and the way the lenses and the camera itself works. The camera that she lent me and actually subsequently gave me was this. It's a Zeiss Contax 35mm. It's quite heavy, very, very beautifully made. And it came with a standard lens, and it also came with a wide angle lens, and it came with a telephoto lens. All of this is so beautifully machined and beautifully made. And oh yes, and then there was a turret viewfinder, so that you could actually, because it's not through the lens viewing, this is a viewfinder camera, so you're looking out through here, and this is a rangefinder, so you use there's a mirror device in there, and you can see how far away the object is, and it sets the lens automatically. And so the turret viewfinder here, you adjust according to the focal length of the lens that you've got on at the time. Well, it's not the original case. The case actually comes off a Zeiss Icon, and I think the reason for that may be connected to these two very sharp little dents here and here in the camera. And I asked my mum, what's the story about the dents? Did you drop it or something? She said quite casually, no, I got hit by some shrapnel. And then, as if she regretted saying that, she said nothing more. Now, if that had been the case, there's a little nick out of the rangefinder wheel here, and there's a little indent here on the housing. It would have may well have destroyed the case. And that's perhaps why it's in the Icon case. But I mean, that's really only me guessing.